You're listening to Career Interrupted, and this is your host, Joy Foster. And I'm live today with Kate Prince, the founder of Ancient and Brave. And we're talking about career pivots, can you have it all, and of course, collagen. So she believes in progress over perfection, and that is how she got to where she is. And I am super delighted to have you here, Kate. Thank you so much. Let's dive straight in and tell me about your career pivots. You've had a very interesting career. You started out as a lawyer, and then you moved out of London with these two boys, and things changed for you. So tell me about these career pivots that you've made and how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
Hi, thank you, Joy. So yes, absolutely. My whole life just kind of wanted to be a lawyer. Went into the city, thought this was like the bee's knees. Quite quickly worked out it absolutely wasn't for me. I didn't like the hierarchy, very male environment, and I'm talking 30 years ago. So I actually thought, well, if I'm going to do law, I've qualified. I want to do something fun. So I was like, okay, let's try TV. I mean, what's not fun about that? So went into reality TV with in-house with Endemol, who at the time were kind of the kings of reality TV. So I became a lawyer on everything that you can imagine, from Big Brother through to, we did something called The Games. I mean, a lot of reality programs and game shows. And actually it was super fun because at the time it felt super creative because we were actually kind of the first team to do certain things. I mean, it was quite a different environment than the reality TV of today, which has gone quite extreme. It was a bit more safer and more protected at that point, but it also just it wasn't for me. So I think we left London at that point. I was married, we had 2 babies, we moved to Sussex, and I was still working for some independent small production companies as a consultant, repping basically some like TV celebrities on the other side. So that was kind of fun for a while, but always had this complete entrepreneurial spirit, absolutely just kept wanting my own thing, kept looking at brands that I loved, logos, product, and actually that allowed my husband and I to explore that, which I kind of never thought I was creative at all, to get into brands. And we launched a small tea brand, which is adorable, called Prince & Sons Tea, still going to this day, can be found in things like the Pig Hotel Group and places like that. But knew I wanted my own business. Like, he is, was very, very laid back, very kind of horizontal human being, which is brilliant because it absolutely kind of supports me in what I do, but probably not the best to be in business with. And I could see the writing on the wall in terms of wellness. And I was like, this is something I really want to do.
That's really interesting. I can relate a little bit to that. I mean, I think very early on in my marriage to my husband, we realized we were really good marriage partners, really great parent team, but we just weren't going to work together. And I think that happens. And I think, entrepreneurs need really supportive partners, whether it's a female entrepreneur with a male supportive partner or a male entrepreneur with a female supportive partner. I do think it's very rare that you're going to find 2 highly charged entrepreneurs in a marriage. I think it's sort of, and then the marriage survives, right? So
yeah, that would be a nightmare. Like we're all fighting for attention and, feeling like the most important person in the room. And then suddenly, no, and he's been a brilliant support. I'm going to give him that. I don't give him a lot, but I'm going to give him that. He's been a brilliant support, and I'm very, very grateful. Yeah.
Well, I can imagine that when you're making some of these pivots and some of these choices, like, for example, saying to your husband, I love you, but I can't work with you, you carry on with the tea company, I'm going to go do something else. I can imagine that there would be some stakes in there. What was it like to sort of say, I'm going to do this on my own? Because a lot of times when we build a business, we don't get to take a salary for a couple of years, or, we can't, that's a big risk. So when were the stakes the highest for you?
Yeah, well, I think probably around then. I mean, I very much was still doing my day job when we were launching the tea company. So I felt like I was doing 2 jobs. And actually, when you then decide that I also want to go and have my own business and give up everything that I've been learning and taught and have this big career, that's a moment of reflection, right? And that's a moment of fear, probably. As a lawyer, you give up your practicing certificate. If you don't practice for a certain amount of time, you'd have to go back and do exams to get that back. You're out the industry, you're losing your contacts. So that there is a real risk to that. A career I wanted my whole kind of childhood and growing up, I was very focused and driven on it, to just saying, actually, no, that's actually not for me. And I really had this overwhelming kind of passion and determination that I was going to start my own thing, for better or worse. But so, there's a lot that drives that. But I think one of the things I feel that I've gained along the way, which is, I'm a product of my father, was a very kind of strong work ethic. Like, I was a Saturday girl at M&S. I was working in coffee shops. I always had like a little entrepreneurial idea on the side. So for me, it is a bit obsessive. I'm very kind of resilient when it comes to the daily needs and grind, and I'll get my head down and do that. So I know this isn't for everyone, but I knew at least I had a few characteristics. I didn't know I could launch a company that anyone would like, but I knew I could work hard at it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also what you talk about with the potential of losing your license, right? So I started out in the finance world. I got my Series 7 in the US and was working in trading. And it's the same thing. And I did real estate as well at one point and had my real estate license and my life insurance license. And, so I've had all of these licenses, financial license, real estate license, and you work so hard to get those licenses.
Yeah.
And then, if you decide you're going to go down a totally different path, and you sort of, it is like burning the boats. Like, I'm not going to go back to do those things because I'm doing this other thing. And you worked hard for those. That's really interesting to reflect back on. I haven't thought about that in years. I did my financial stuff 20 years ago.
Yeah. But maybe you have to burn the boat, right?
Yeah. I think I'm
going forward. Maybe that's
okay. I think the most successful ones do burn the boats, because if you don't burn the boats, you're sort of in two worlds. Well, yeah. So what were your fears and doubts, as you were navigating, letting go of, you had a law license, all of that. What were the fears and doubts, the biggest things that you thought, was this going to really work, or, whatnot?
Yeah, I think that's basically it. Is this going to work? Is anyone going to like this product? Do I know what I'm doing? Of course I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done it before. So, but, I thought, well, I'm going to apply some of the skills that I've learned, a bit of commercial acumen. I can read a legal contract. I can probably negotiate fairly well, and like I said, I sort of have this strong, determined work ethic. But when you actually find the idea and you start developing the brand, and it becomes very shiny and very new, and as an entrepreneur, we just want to launch and birth new ideas and new things, then that definitely takes over the fear, I think. And I think at that point, you just lean in, and you're all in, and the boats burn, and we're away. And then, I suppose what happens, if you're very lucky, then the journey just takes you. So then, in a way, there isn't really time to kind of consider. If, for better or worse, you're just on this path, and you've just got to keep going. So I think it's like, it's there, and it's always there, right, for most of us. But it can also be short-lived, because you just got to crack on. You've got to keep moving.
But that's a great point. I think taking action is a really great way to kill that fear and doubt, because the fear and doubt gets bigger the less you the less you do, the less action you take. I think you can sort of stomp it out by actually taking action against it.
Well, some things no time. If you have a lot of time on your hands, then you're going to kind of dwell on the downsides. But actually, if you're just super busy, then you're actually you're probably just problem solving. Every entrepreneur knows that actually we spend half the day, if not more, just problem solving, and that just sort of takes over everything else. And then it gets a bit sad, because suddenly actually maybe you don't have time to be so creative and thoughtful and about every single part that you want to do. And I've had to really learn that, because I'm very much kind of, I'm really like the control of running my own business, and I like the detail, and I'm incessant, and I still look at every piece of packaging and every wording that goes out in the packaging, and I'm really involved in product development. So I love all of that. But I think there's a moment that you have to go, I don't have time. I can't keep doing all that. So you build out your team, you bring in people who are better than you, specific, in their field, have way more knowledge. And that's a lovely thing to start working with, because you're learning at the same time. And that's my favorite bit, really.
Well, let's talk about the surprises that have come out of all of these pivots, but particularly your biggest pivot, which is into building your own business, Ancient and Brave. What has been the biggest surprise? Apart from the fact that it actually worked, that's pretty exciting.
That's a pretty big surprise. Obviously, like, you feel ambitious for yourself, and you feel ambitious for your company, and why would you start it if you don't? And and ambition is a personal thing. It's the measure of success is only down to you. I love this quote that, is it Baz Luhrmann? Well, before Baz Luhrmann, it was someone else, but Baz Luhrmann said it's like, sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind. The race is long. It's only with yourself. And I love that quote, because I'm like, that makes you stay in your lane, yes, be aware of your competitors, but like just stay in your lane. Like if you believe in what you're doing and your brand, don't chase the shiny bright new thing, just keep going. And you know, you've only got to be sort of better than the day before. You don't have to be better than anyone else. And I think that is definitely a philosophy that also has kind of kept me going and kept me steady. And when I've kind of felt that fear coming in, or, you know, particularly seen, you know, other, you know, ideas floating around or other brands doing super well or speeding ahead, I've just gone, no, it's okay. I know where I'm going. Let's just keep going. So
I really love that quote. I won't go into the details, but I was having a heart to heart with my daughter about, you know, how she felt compared to other people, you know, cleverness wise. And she's very clever, but she's also a problem solver. She works really hard. But I need to give her that quote because I think it's really important that she hears that. We were talking before about, you know, can you have it all? And I think, you know, one of the things that I've heard around, I think Michelle Obama said it, you know, you can have it all, just not at the same time. And I think that really resonates with me, particularly with motherhood. You have some thoughts about having it all, particularly with business, but also with motherhood. Would you like to share those with us, our audience? I think they'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Michelle Obama's like the goddess, right, in that quote. So like she owns that, and like, and absolutely do agree with it. And I think when I stopped trying to have it all, I gave myself permission just to kind of step back and be a bit more forgiving to myself and the people around me, and pace it out a little bit more and realize that some things were going to suffer. I mean, she also talks about survivor's guilt, right, Michelle Obama, and you know, that's a hard concept in business, that actually maybe you can't take everyone with you on the journey. Maybe some people are more suited for other parts of the journey, like when your business is a bit slower or a bit more thorough, and when it gets very fast paced, it doesn't suit everyone. So I think that's kind of an interesting idea that I sometimes play with in business and see. So I you know, I'm a big fan of Michelle Obama, but the one thing that the team and I have kind of managed to do over the last few years, and I think it's kind of what we're really super proud of, is in a way I set the company up to be mission driven from the start. So we hear a lot about that. We hear a lot from B Corps, you know, but it is important, and it is important to kind of have that moment of balance, which is the people, planet, purpose, profit, which sort of become your family really when you're launching a business. And, you know, I think what we've shown is obviously female leader. We all know this, you know, horrible statistic that only 2% of women get funding. You know, I was one of the fortunate ones. We did get some funding a couple of years ago. So tick, great, that was brilliant. I now have a team, but I started at the kitchen table for 2 years. I do now, you know, 4, 5, 6 years later, I have a team, and there's a lot of us. It's over 100, but we're still probably 85% of women. And we're really proud of that in our leadership team, on the board. My chair's a woman, you know, most of the team are women, people in the warehouse are women, you know, and I'm absolutely loving growing that brand. So, and then I think, you know, we're actually a profitable company. We give 2% of our revenue every single year. So we're able to support some amazing charities. We're one of the highest scoring B Corps in the world. You know, we tick a lot of boxes in terms of climate neutral. You know, our packaging is recyclable. We're very ethical when it comes to sourcing. And I would just challenge anyone starting a business, you know, if you set your business up right, if you build it into your pricing and your margin, which is vital for you to perform UK or international, you know, status, then maybe you can, or maybe you can introduce it bit by bit. Like, you know, can you have one kind of packaging one year? You know, suddenly you've had a great year. Can you change your package? So I would just challenge anyone doing a business that I think there is a moment, not maybe immediately, but you can maybe have it all. So maybe that is going back to Michelle Obama, which is like, maybe you can't have it all in one go, but you have to build it up slowly. Maybe that's still right. I don't know.
Yeah, but I did like your distinction between, you know, having it all in business, because one of the advantages you have in business is being able to hire people, especially if you've got revenue and profit. And I think particularly if you have profit, but, you know, if you've got revenue, you can pay people to do things. And you know, one of the reasons that I could be the mom that I've been able to be is because I have a team. You know, there's no way that I could do what I do to the extent that I do it with my family if I didn't have a team who was writing my emails, creating my social media, you know, all of those things, doing the finances. We call it financial yoga at our company, but, you know, doing the finances and, you know, doing the editing, the video editing, the podcast editing. I don't do any of that. Now, I did in the beginning, just like you. I was by myself I don't think I was ever by myself. I always had people doing something, volunteers or people early on. But I think I learned really early on that being able to hire people meant that I had less of a burden, which meant that I could do more of what I was good at.
Yeah.
But I'm also neurodivergent, which, I didn't know. And I have ADHD, and I didn't know that. And that explains a lot why I had to have a lot of people helping, because I couldn't function otherwise. And that's okay. But my mom, I remember one time my mom saying when I was a teenager, she's like, you can't do anything without other people around you. And it was true. Like, I really always needed people around me to do stuff. So I'm grateful for all the people over all the years that have helped me out, to where we are now. But I think that's just such an important conversation. Can you have it all? And I think I agree with that statement. I think first time I've ever spoken to someone who said, yeah, I think you actually can have it all in business. And then how do you balance that with your family, of course, is the other question. But I think by being able to hire people to do things, that gives you time back to be with the people that you love. And that was really, really essential for me. And I think I've been able to be more with my family as a result of building a business than I would have been if I'd been a job's worth working for somebody else, because I would have been completely beholden to them. So I don't know. I think building a business has been really good for the family side.
Yeah. And we've all got to just lean into our skills. You have to start as a jack of all trades, and you learn, and there's great things about that. Like, I know some of the challenges that like the warehouse are facing, or how to blend products, and I understand taste and flavors, and I've learned a lot around nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist, but I now have a team, exactly this point, 6 nutritionists who are experts in their field, and you bring in the innovators and the scientists and the graphic designers, and they just make your thoughts in your head just come to life. I mean, that's just like the most brilliant, and I definitely kind of feel like they're my family, So it's growing a little bit too fast in a way, like it's kind of getting a little out of control now, but actually I hope that we're building a culture where everyone feels that at some level within Ancient and Brave.
Well, let's talk about your motto for life. What do you lean into, that helps you keep going every day?
Well, I mean, I'm loving your jumper right now, because way before Ancient and Brave, one of my big things was be brave. I remember doing this for a specific reason. I think I was having it wasn't like, counseling or something, but I was doing like a bit more self-development. And at that point, I have to say, it was pretty like self-development for me was literally like getting a bikini wax or something. So like it was kind of a deep dive, and I'm just really glad I did it. But one of the things that came out of it was like, I just want to be brave like every single day. But what I have learned on that journey is that's not necessarily like, when we talk about this, there's a lot about the brand, which is like the brave lifestyle, for example, and we talk about all these lovely things that you can do in the cold water swimming and outdoor and being barefoot and forest bathing, and these things are wonderful, and they, they're, if you can bring them into your life, obviously, like, wholeheartedly you should if you can. But there's also this moment of just going, actually sometimes just to not procrastinate is being quite brave, to kind of put your head down and kind of lean into like the worst problem on your to-do list, or talking to your neighbor, or getting a mammogram. These things can always be brave, and I think that's something that I lean into. And so I'm not actually charging up a mountain every day anymore, for sure, but I think there are decisions that you can make that just keep pushing you forward and you have to be pretty brave as a leader and as a brand owner. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's one of our values, big time, is being brave and encouraging people. And we use our hashtag is be brave and sparkle. And the word sparkle is really our value set, which is supportive, positive, authentic relationships with women who are keen to learn and want to be empowered, and that's really what we're all about. But the be brave sort of came off the back of that, because we learned that if people could take that one brave move, that would snowball into another one and another one and another one, and before they know it, they're making braver and bolder decisions than they'd ever would have made 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago, right? So it's
for sure. For sure.
That's one of the things. So tell us a little bit more about Ancient and Brave. I mean, I'm curious. Obviously, we've talked about the brave side. Where does the ancient come from? Why is that important to you?
Yeah, well, there's this whole idea of ancestral health. So, historically, ancestrally, we would have gone out and like slaughtered meat for the day, dragged it back. It would have been pretty nutrient rich. We would have slow cooked it to maintain all those nutrients. So it's kind of looking back at ancestral health. And also I think that what that means to us as a brand is integrity, not adding in, any kind of additives or sugars or colorings or anything like that, just keeping it as pure and natural as we can be, and looking back at what's worked with Ayurvedic medicine, using things like ashwagandha in our diet, which is like amazing. If anyone doesn't, please do. I love it. And it's there for kind of stress resilience and anxiety. But also it's learning from the people that have come before us, are wiser than us, have use certain botanicals or herbs or products to help their bodies thrive. So it's definitely a kind of a reach for the past and that learning and that moment of ancient ritual and those pauses. And we talk a lot about rise and rest and that consistency, the consistency of kind of taking something every day that kind of makes you feel better. So these are all the kind of themes that weave throughout the brand that we really overthink a lot. And then the brave is that piece. It's kind of like locking in, and it is the kind of do brave, but it's also that the moment of like brave innovation, pushing yourself forward, new science, and locking that in with the ancestral health. And that for us is kind of what the brand means and where the ethos comes from.
That's quite magical. And you've had some popular celebrities endorsing your brand, like Davina McCall, who's been all over the place, having written Menopausing, one of my favorite books, changed my life, helped me understand what I was going through, helped me to talk to my doctors, get things that I needed to get in place. I'm quite proud. Just this week, I finally got testosterone approved for myself, which was great. So, she's done an amazing job raising awareness about menopause. She's also raising awareness about some of your products. And I know that right now, I'm 45 years old and I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm getting bombarded right and left by collagen ads and, all of these other things. And, it's very confusing. It's hard to know what to do, what to take, what not to take, why it's important. Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch quickly on Davina, and we're very lucky that she loves the brand and we've got to get to work with her. But honestly, she's one of the nicest people. And I'm so thrilled. Now I'll tell her what you've just said because she'll be absolutely thrilled to hear. She loves the stories and the human contact and those, so amazing. She'll love that. And I think, we were talking a bit about, so back to collagen. So yeah, there are quite a few collagen brands out there. When I started, there really weren't. It felt like there really wasn't one. And then I think about the same year I started, there were like a couple. And now I think post-COVID, we're seeing quite a lot. And I think, like it was quite interesting at the start because you had to go, everyone was going, well, what is collagen? Like, I don't really understand it. I don't want to put it in my diet. I was at a dinner party and everyone was like, that really doesn't sound something I'm going to use. And you could sit at the same dinner party now and probably 80% of the people around the table are using a collagen or a type of collagen or other supplements that they also love and incorporate in their diet, So, I mean, essentially, like what collagen does is we lose collagen as we age. So there is a necessity to kind of supplement that. There are other factors, environmental, diet, external factors that can also kind of help deplete your collagen even further. So collagen is very, very clever. It kind of, we add it into our diet, in our bodies are super smart. They actually work out where they need the collagen. And sometimes you might need it, in other areas. So we talk a lot around gut health and it can help support things like, IBS or leaky gut for certain people. It can also help support bones and joints issues, particularly around the cartilage. I won't get into all the science, but there's basically a type 1, type 2, type 3. Type 2 is very, very good for cartilage around your bones. And we have actually a lovely little supplement pill called Noble, and we need a lot less of type 2. But I really recommend that for anyone kind of menopausal and older. I'm obsessed about it. I take it every day. Well, I take all of them every day, obviously. But so collagen is just super clever. And it will kind of work out where it needs in the body. And actually, what the amazing side effect of that is actually you can have will sort of help to make your skin feel more hydrated. It does help hair. Supports hair growth and maintenance, etc. So all of these things are lovely side effects, but as a brand, they're not what we focused on at all. And I think what you should do is just kind of introduce it into your diet, be consistent, take it every single day. And then, you start to feel the side effects. So I just recommend everyone tries it. The one thing I would say, I'm not saying you have to take instant braids, but I would recommend that you really look into the research of the product. For example, with collagen, when you talk specifically around bovine, we're obsessed about the sustainability issue. A lot of bovine collagen comes from South America. which actually can lead to deforestation, etc. Whereas we use EU bovine, where there's been no hormones or pesticides used in collagen since, I think the law was brought out in 1998. So it's like just a really beautiful source. And when we come to our marine collagen, so if you're not a meat eater, the marine collagen actually sources MSC, so it's Marine Stewardship Council stock, so it's replenished, it's sustainable. And again, some of the fish collagens on the market are farmed, and they're basically farmed fish rather than wild caught. So I think you just got to do your research into the provenance. You don't really need to add other things into your collagen, but it is brilliant to add to your coffee, etc. And it really becomes, when you have a very, very clean and beautiful source of collagen, it really is odorless and tasteless. It's more challenging if the source isn't there.
I think you've made a brilliant point. And you talked a lot about why you've brought nutritionists on board, and you have a lot of information on your website about the nutritional side of things. And really, I think doing your research is the most important thing I've just gained from that. You know, if you're thinking about a supplement, what are you going to do? Do your research. And one of the things that when I found out that I had ADHD, or was living with ADHD, or whatever you want to say, I started supplements. That was 2 years ago. And it was a game changer for me. And ashwagandha was one of the things that was a complete game changer for me. And I will never go a day without it for as long as I live, because it is, I mean, it's brilliant. It keeps me focused. It keeps, me energized. I mean, but it's just amazing. And I think, I was very skeptical of supplements before. In fact, as an athlete, I wasn't allowed to take any of them because, the Olympic committee would come and make you wee in a cup, and I was always under fear of, not passing. And even at like tournaments and stuff, you had to keep, you had to make sure your water bottle was with you at all times, and, that you never left your water bottle alone so someone couldn't put something into it, so you live sort of in fear of being, in trouble for using supplements. And actually, as an adult that is no longer under Olympic testing, I don't have to do any of that anymore. So I've been able to try different things, and it was such a game changer with my ADHD. So, and then it's also been a game changer, the supplements I've taken for menopause. So, it's interesting, but I think number one is recognizing, do I feel 100%? And if I don't feel 100%, what are the things that I can do? And, obviously there's natural things, getting outside every day for 45 minutes, going for a walk, getting sleep. And of course, for a lot of people that sleep is interrupted, which is why supplements can really help. But eating food that's, good and nutritious for your body, like broccoli, kale, sweet potatoes, etc. But then also, if you're doing all of those things and you still don't feel 100%, it's really important to look at what might be missing from your diet, because as you said, things have changed so much. We've got so many more things in our life that people just didn't have, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 500 years ago. So, and we're living longer as well. That's the other thing, my friend Eleanor Mills, who runs Noon and wrote the book Much More to Come, she talks about the fact that we're pretty much going to all be centurions now, and we're all going to live to be 100. And so for most of us, we're just at the brink, the halfway point of our lives. And there's so much more to come in terms of, what we can do. And retiring at 65 is really not an option anymore. It's not the way that it works anymore. So making sure we're taking care of ourselves is really important. So thank you for sharing that.
No, of course. I mean, I agree with everything you've just said. And, I truly believe that, we are going to obviously live longer. And, there's nothing more important than movement and keeping our bodies moving. And, I'm also just really leaning into so much, there's so much more science coming out around community and communication and all that. And I think that's something that, you can forget when your head's down in a business. Even though you're building your team around you, there's just, there's so much more out there and wider community. And I love that idea of kind of tapping into all of that as well, just, for mental health more than anything.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Kate, for coming on today and talking about your amazing journey and your incredible company. And, I think a huge takeaway for me is whatever supplements you do, whatever changes you make with your diet, you need to be really pay a lot of attention to the source and the research behind it. And I think that's going to be that's a really important takeaway for me. And that beautiful quote that I'm going to give my daughter, I'm going to share that with her. She'll love it. Thank you so much. And if people want to go and check out your stuff, first of all, what would be the thing that you'd say that someone should start with? Like if they were, I know your hot chocolate seems to be quite popular. Is that what you would recommend, or is there something else that you recommend?
Actually, if you are feeling like you're brand new to collagen, you can definitely try something like, we have a cacao or a matcha or a coffee which we add the collagen to, and it has ashwagandha in and some other lovely things. So it's are all like really chilled drink. And you might want to start with having a lovely, delicious, healthy hot chocolate when in your slump in the afternoon. And then we would encourage you, bit by bit, like we talk about our foundation products, and one of them basically, which is what the nutrition team talk about, which is basically there's like 3 you should just take every day. We would say definitely a collagen. We lean into omegas. We've just launched an amazing omega. So like we're absolutely obsessed by omegas at the moment. And then I think it depends whether you're depending on what your body needs, the ashwagandha or the magnesium. But I do both because I love both, and I'm obsessed by sleep. So I'm doing anything I can to have the best sleep I can.
That's so important. And where can people go to find these products?
Well, I mean, the website's, there front and center. There's so much education on it. We communicate, and educate as much as we can. It's one of the things we pride ourselves as a brand. So, go there, dig in. There's quizzes you can take. There's collagen quizzes. There's more, bigger health quizzes to help you kind of redefine, what you may be looking for, what support you need, what life goal or lifestyle or health goal that you want to achieve. But I think beyond that, if you're still really struggling, email us, call us. We have a team of very lovely people, including nutritionists, who will happily have a chat with you.
Okay, so in the UK, it's ancientandbrave.earth, and outside the UK, .com. Okay, great. Well, we have people mostly listening from the UK, so we'll make sure that we link to both in the bottom of the show notes, just in case we have the odd listener outside of the UK. And yeah, like I said, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, that was a question that we kept getting all the time. What is this collagen thing? Why should I be doing it? And of course, as you can tell, there's way more to Kate and her business than just collagen, although it's a very important part of what she does. Really great to get to interview someone who has built such an incredible business with such care and such thought that went behind every piece of the business, right? So where it came from and the type of people that she has in her business, and just really being brave and going after the thing that she wanted to go for. So I really hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I enjoyed interviewing her. And I look forward to seeing you again next week, same time, same place, and have a great week.